They will never text you at 2 a.m. to say they miss you. They won't post a sad song on social media, hoping you'll notice. But make no mistake, when you walk away, an avoidant feels the loss in ways they'll never let you see. This is the grief they hide, and the mourning they'll never confess. The grief that doesn't look like grief. They won't cry in front of anyone. They won't stay in bed for days, unable to eat. They won't call their friends and say, "I can't believe they're gone." An avoidance grief is different. It's quiet, contained, and on the surface, almost invisible. To the outside world, it may look like they've moved on without a second thought. They go back to work. They keep up with their hobbies. They even smile in conversations. But here's what you don't see. Every one of those actions is a wall, a way to keep the flood from breaking through. Avoidance learned long ago that showing pain is unsafe, that if they admitted to missing someone, they'd open themselves up to being abandoned all over again. So instead of falling apart, they lock everything inside. They might tell themselves, "It wasn't that deep," or "I'm better off." But these are not truths, they are shields. Because under that practiced indifference, there's a quiet ache that never really leaves. An ache that shows up when they hear a song you once shared, when they walk past the restaurant where you laughed together, when they see a random stranger wearing your favorite color. These moments don't lead to tears, they lead to withdrawal. Because for them, grief isn't about openly feeling the loss. It's about controlling it so tightly, they can pretend it isn't there. And this is where their hidden mourning begins. Not in what they show the world, but in what they bury so deeply. They hope even they will forget it exists. How they rewrite the story to survive. When an avoidant loses someone, they don't replay the good memories over and over. They rewrite the narrative so the loss feels less painful. They'll remember your flaws more vividly than your kindness. They'll focus on the arguments instead of the laughter. They'll convince themselves that you leaving was inevitable, or even necessary. This isn't cruelty, it's survival. For an avoidant, emotional closeness carries danger. So when the relationship ends, their nervous system looks for a way to avoid reopening the wound. And the easiest way to avoid pain is to avoid longing. They might say to themselves, "They weren't really the one for me," or "I can't believe I put up with that." And these thoughts serve a purpose. They create distance from the truth that they care deeply, the truth that losing you hurts more than they want to admit. In private, this rewriting doesn't erase you. It only tucks you away into a locked box in their mind, a box they will not open, because opening it would mean feeling the loss all over again. But here's what's ironic. That box doesn't disappear. It travels with them, from one relationship to the next, from one chapter of life to another. And sometimes, years later, they'll come across something that unlocks it without warning. A scent, a laugh, a place you once stood together. And for a moment, the rewriting fails. The real story slips through, and the ache returns, just as sharp as the day you left. The body keeps the score even when the mind refuses. The avoidant can tell themselves a story in which they are untouched. They can believe their own calm. They can even convince others they've moved on. But the body never lies. Long before the avoidant ever notices it, their body begins speaking in a quiet language they've never learned to translate. It starts subtly, a tension in the jaw that never seems to release, a heaviness in the chest that lingers in the quiet moments, a restless urge to keep moving to fill every spare moment with distraction. To them, this is normal. This is how they've always felt. But what they don't see is that their nervous system is holding a truth there. Mind refuses to acknowledge. When you walked away, when your voice no longer filled the spaces between their days. Something inside them shifted. Their conscious mind told them they were fine, that they were better off, that they had avoided a storm. But their heartbeat told another story. Their sleep patterns whispered a different truth. Their breath, shallow and guarded, betrayed the calm they claimed. The avoidant is an expert at walling off emotion. They can compartmentalize like it's an art form. They can bury longing under logic and grief under the weight of reasons. But the nervous system, it does not speak in language. It does not care about reasoning. It speaks in sensation. So the loss doesn't arrive as tears or dramatic breakdowns. It arrives as an unexplained fatigue, a stomach that knots at random, a chest that tightens when they pass the place you once met. They don't cry into pillows at night. They just can't fall asleep. They toss. They turn. They wake too early, heart racing, mind already scanning for something to do, anything to avoid the stillness. Stillness is their enemy, because stillness is where the body starts speaking louder. And the body has been storing everything. There is a name for this. Psychologists call it somatic memory. The way experiences live inside the body, shaping tension, breath, heartbeat. And for the avoidant, this memory is like an attic full of boxes they've never dared to open. Your absence is one of those boxes. When they stopped seeing you, the body didn't let you go. It simply filed you away into muscle tension, altered breathing, and unconscious habits. Sometimes it leaks out in small, almost invisible ways. They pass someone in public who moves like you. A faint scent on the wind reminds them of your perfume or cologne. A phrase you once said appears in a conversation. In those moments, the nervous system reacts instantly before the mind can suppress it. Their chest tightens. Their pulse quickens. The world feels slightly off. They might brush it off as nothing, but the body knows. And in dreams, where the mind's guard is down, you sometimes return. It's startling how vivid these dreams can be. The sound of your laughter, the way you looked at them in that one, rare, unguarded moment, the warmth of being in your presence again. They wake with a heaviness in their chest and a strange hollowness in their stomach. For a moment, they feel the ache. Then they bury it. Before breakfast, before coffee, before it can take root. The avoidant has spent their life learning how to silence this inner voice. As children, their bodies reacted to emotional absence and inconsistency. But no one helped them interpret those signals. So they learned a trick. Ignore the signals long enough, and you can convince yourself they don't matter. It worked for years, until you bypassed the part of them that was always guarded. You connected with something deeper. And now, your absence isn't just a thought they can block. It's an ache that lives in their skin. This is why they throw themselves into work, or fitness, or endless plans. Because motion quiets sensation. If they're moving, they don't have to notice the knot in their stomach. If they're busy, they don't have to feel the heaviness pressing on their chest. The cruel irony is that this doesn't heal anything. It just delays it. And sometimes, in a moment of total quiet, it all rushes in. A song they haven't heard since you last sent it to them. A photograph they forgot they still had. A random memory so small it shouldn't matter. But suddenly, it matters more than anything. In that moment, their body isn't just reminding them of you. It's reminding them of themselves, the part they only allowed to exist when you were there. And that realization is terrifying, because if the connection was real, if the body still reacts this strongly, then maybe they weren't as untouched as they thought. And for the avoidant, that thought feels like danger. So they'll shake it off. They'll distract themselves again. They'll tell themselves a different story. But the body doesn't stop keeping score. It's waiting, patiently, because one day, whether they want it or not, they will have to open that box. And when they do, they'll find that what's inside isn't just memories of you. It's the pieces of themselves they lost long before you arrived, and the pieces you unknowingly woke up. If your silence has been confusing to them, it's because they don't realize it's not just your voice they're missing. It's the way their own body felt when you were there. And no amount of distance will erase that. That's why, even when they think they've outrun you, the body will keep whispering your name. The triggers that pull you back into their mind. An avoidant believes in clean breaks. They believe that once they shut the door, the room on the other side no longer exists. But you left fingerprints on the walls. Even after they've decided they've moved on, their world is full of small landmines they don't see coming. They aren't the big, dramatic moments they expect. It's not your birthday or the anniversary of the day you met. Those are obvious. They can prepare for those. It's the little things, the ones that slip past their defenses, the ones that catch them off guard in the middle of an ordinary day, the accidental reminders. It could be as simple as a stranger laughing the way you did. Not just the sound, but the rhythm, the way it rises and falls exactly like yours. For a second, they're not where they are. They're back in that cafe where you once told them a story so ridiculous they had to hide their face to stop from smiling too hard. Or maybe it's a song, not your song, but one that played in the background during a moment they didn't realize. They were memorizing. Something about the chord progression, the tone, the way the melody swells. And suddenly, you're there again. And here's the thing. These moments don't feel nostalgic to them. They feel intrusive. Because the avoidant lives in a carefully constructed emotional house. They know which doors to lock. They know which windows to keep shut. Triggers are like someone slipping through a crack they didn't notice. The emotional echo. Sometimes the trigger isn't sensory at all. It's emotional. A friend unexpectedly shows them real vulnerability. Someone asks them a question that hits too close to home. They watch a scene in a movie where two people share the exact kind of closeness they once had with you, and their first instinct is to look away. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's too important. The avoidant has trained themselves to ignore their emotional hunger. When something stirs it, they feel exposed, raw, unsteady. Your absence is the deepest echo of that hunger. The subconscious traps. Sometimes, without realizing it, they set themselves up to be reminded of you. They'll take the long way home, passing by a street you once walked together. They'll keep a piece of clothing you gave them tucked away, telling themselves it's just for practical use, but never actually wearing it. They'll leave a certain playlist in their phone that they never listen to, but somehow it stays downloaded. They'll say these things don't mean anything, but deep down, they know they're tiny doors back into the world where you existed. And every now and then, without meaning to, they open one. Why they don't admit it? The avoidant won't tell anyone about these moments. They won't even admit them to themselves. To say they've been triggered is to admit there's still an emotional tie. And in their worldview, needing someone, or even missing someone feels like weakness. So they downplay it. They rationalize. They tell themselves they're only thinking of you because they're bored, or tired, or hungry. But the truth is, you've been woven into the wiring of their daily life. The fight inside their head. Here's the part they would never confess. Some triggers feel good, not in a soft, romantic way, but in the way a song from childhood brings you back to a time when things felt safe. Your presence was never safe for them in the way they understood safety. It was unpredictable, intense. It demanded more of them than they were used to giving. And yet, It awakens something in them they can't recreate alone. So when a trigger hits, there's a moment, just a moment, where they almost lean into it, where they allow themselves to feel it before pushing it away. It's like standing too close to a fire. It's warm, almost intoxicating, until they remember they could get burned. When silence becomes the loudest trigger, here's the paradox they can't escape. The more silent you are, the more triggers seem to appear. When you were in their life, their mind could keep you neatly filed into the present. Now that you're gone, their brain has to decide where to store you. It tries to put you in the past, but the body and the senses refuse. So instead, you live in a liminal space. Not quite gone, not quite here, floating in their peripheral vision. And that's where silence becomes powerful, because your absence isn't just nothing. It's a canvas their mind keeps painting on. And every reminder, every small trigger, adds another brushstroke. They think they've built an armor you can't touch. But the truth is, the armor doesn't protect against the inside. And the triggers? They live inside. They can block your number, mute your posts, avoid your favorite places. But they can't stop the smell of rain from reminding them of that night you walked home together. They can't stop their hand from pausing over a menu item you used to order. They can't stop the way certain words taste like your voice. And they can't stop the truth that every time it happens, it's not just you they're remembering. It's the version of themselves they were when they were with you. A version they haven't seen since. That's why they can never fully run. Not really. Because some part of them will always be standing in that one unguarded moment, looking at you like they wish they could stay, and wondering if it's still possible. And that thought, that dangerous, persistent thought, will follow them long after the silence began. The day they finally feel the weight. They always thought they'd have more time. Not to talk to you, but to forget you. For the avoidant, getting over someone is never about healing. It's about distraction. If they can keep moving, keep working, keep filling the silence with other noise, then maybe they won't have to notice the absence. But the day always comes when the noise stops. And when it does, the silence you left behind is waiting. It doesn't come when they expect it. The moment they feel the weight isn't dramatic. It doesn't happen during a breakup conversation, or the week after, or when they see you post something new. It arrives in the most ordinary setting, in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, when they're tired, unguarded, and sure they've made it through. They might be at the grocery store, at their desk, pouring coffee, and then it hits them. Not a thought, not a memory, a feeling. The kind that doesn't ask for permission before it floods you. It's not sadness exactly. It's not regret in the way they know it. It's a heavy, wordless ache that says, you're missing something, and you can't get it back. Why it hits harder for the avoidant. For most people, loss is a process. You feel it immediately. You cry, you adjust, you move on. For the avoidant, loss is a delayed reaction. They don't feel it when you leave. They feel it when their protective system finally lets its guard down. And by the time that happens, you're far enough away that they can't reach you without crossing a chasm of silence. The silence they insisted on. The silence they thought was safety. This is the irony. The very thing they used to protect themselves' distance becomes the thing that locks them out. The moment of realization. It usually starts with a trigger they can't push away. Not a passing memory this time, but a vivid, full-body replay of a moment with you. The way you once looked at them when they finally opened up. The sound of your voice saying their name. The expression on your face the day you laughed so hard. You had to wipe tears from your eyes. They don't just remember. They feel it in high resolution. And with that comes the sickening recognition. They will never have that exact version of you again. Avoidants hate finality. They want the comfort of knowing you're still there, somewhere, just in case they ever decide to come back. But now, for the first time, they can't shake the feeling that you might not be. The war between pride and need. When the weight hits, there's a split inside them. One side says, reach out, fix it before it's too late. The other side, the one that's ruled them their whole life, says, don't you dare. You'll look desperate. You'll lose control. This is the avoidance lifelong struggle. The pull toward connection versus the fear of losing themselves in it. And here's the truth they'll never tell anyone. By the time they feel the weight, they've already lost control. They can't stop thinking about you. Not in a sweet, romantic way, but in the relentless way you think about something you can't change. They remember things you probably forgot years ago. They rehearse conversations they'll never have. They argue with you in their head and then imagine holding you the next second. It's chaos in there, but they keep it quiet. Why they might not reach out. Even when the weight is crushing, an avoidant may still stay silent. Not because they don't care, not because they don't miss you, but because, to them, reaching out feels like giving you the power to reject them. And rejection is the one wound they can't risk reopening. So instead of knocking on your door, they'll linger in the hallway of their own mind, replaying the past and wondering about the future they'll never see. And sometimes, that's where they stay. The ones who do. There's another kind of avoidant. The one who, when the weight becomes too much, throws pride aside just long enough to try. They'll send a message that's casual on the surface, but underneath is trembling with hope. Something like, hey, just checking in. Or, I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. It sounds light. It's not. It's their way of saying, I feel the weight, and I can't carry it alone anymore. But here's the thing. By the time this message arrives, you might have built your own kind of silence. The kind that doesn't punish them, but protects you. What they feel when you don't answer. If you choose not to respond. It's not anger they feel first, it's shock. They expected you to still be there, even if you were hurt, even if you were distant. The possibility that you've truly moved on is a reality they never prepared for. And in that moment, they're no longer in control of the silence. You are. The shift in power, silence, in their mind, was always their tool. The thing they used to regain control when emotions felt too big. But when you hold it, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a mirror, one that forces them to see exactly what their choices cost them. They don't just feel your absence. They feel their own. The parts of themselves they hid. The moments they withheld. The love they didn't give when they had the chance. And the truth is, that's the heaviest weight of all. Why this changes them, even if you never see it. Most avoidants don't transform overnight. But moments like this, where the silence closes in from both sides, leave a mark. It plants a seed of awareness. That maybe running isn't the solution they always thought it was. That maybe connection is worth the discomfort it demands. Some will ignore that seed. Others will try to bury it. But for some, it grows. And while they may never thank you for it, they'll remember you as the person whose absence taught them more than your presence ever could. The weight you don't have to carry. Here's the part that's for you. If you've ever been on the other side of an avoidant silence, you know how heavy it can feel to wait, to wonder, to hope. But their delayed reaction is not your responsibility. Their eventual weight is not yours to lift. Your silence is not revenge, it's release. It's the moment you hand their choices back to them and stop living in the shadow of what they could never give. And when they finally feel that weight, it won't be because you try to make them. It will be because the truth, left alone long enough, always finds its way home. You never needed to shout to be heard. You never needed to chase to be seen. Sometimes, the loudest thing you'll ever say to someone is nothing at all. And if this has spoken to a part of you you've been keeping quiet, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Because silence doesn't just end relationships. Sometimes, it's the very thing that begins your own healing.